Welcome to ISL Enabled Virtual Lab of CSIR.
Hi everyone,
I'm Utsuka.
I am Jigyasa and
you're
you are listening to India Asks Why,
a science podcast supported by India Bioscience.
where we do the research for you to get smarter.
Join us as India becomes more curious,
One question at a time. We all have visited zoos, haven't we? Utsuka and Jigyasa, on their recent trip to the zoo, were fascinated to see tigers. While admiring a tiger's beauty, they realized something. All the tigers have stripes. In this episode, Utsuka and Jigyasa explore why tigers have stripes. To know more about the purpose of the stripes on the tigers' bodies, they speak to Mihir Trivedi, a wildlife biologist from CCMB. Ooh, the next animal is Panthera, tigress. Wait, that's a tiger.
Yeah, it is a tiger. They're so majestic. And look at that beautiful stripes. The alternating blacks and oranges.
Ooh, and there are two big ones. One tiny cub too is present between them.
Yeah, and look over there. That's a white tiger with black stripes. I wonder why all tigers have stripes, Jigyasa.
It seems like, Utsuka, scientists are also curious about the tiger's stripes. Although they still don't know the exact reason, there are multiple speculations about their stripes. First, let's get some basics right. So, there are two different color pigments in the tiger's skin. The brown or the black pigment is called eumelanin and the yellow or red pigment is called pheomelanin.
Melanin? That sounds familiar. Maybe I heard it in my science class. Don't they give color to our skin too?
Exactly. That's what we're talking about. It does give color to our skin. The skin cells in our body are called melanocytes and they produce melanin. In tigers, there are some melanocytes that produce eumelanin, the black pigment, and others produce pheomelanin, the yellow one.
So, a tiger has black stripes wherever melanocytes produce eumelanin and has orange skin wherever the melanocytes produce pheomelanin, right?
Yes, you are right, Utsuka. Exactly.
But Jigyasa, I wonder how do the melanocytes know where to make the dark pigment and where to make the orange?
So, Utsuka, you remember we saw a tiny tiger cub too in the zoo?
Mm-hmm.
It looked exactly like the mama tiger, right?
Yes, it did, and it also had a similar stripe pattern like mama tiger.
Exactly. So now you can recall from your science book why baby tigers look like their parents. I'll give you a hint. It's the same reason we look like our parents.
Let me think. Is it because of genes?
Yes, Utsuka, it is because of genes. There are a lot of genes in every cell of an organism's body. Genes are part of the DNA that carry information to make you, you. And that's why they are called the blueprint of our body.
So you mean that there are genes in tigers' melanocytes, the type of skin cells which produce pigments, that tell them to make different pigments at different places?
Yes, Utsuka, you're getting very close to the answer. Genes produce proteins which help the melanocyte make the melanin.
That means, in a way, these genes in the tiger's body direct the melanocytes to create the stripe pattern?
Bingo! Yes, various scientists have tried to study the tiger's DNA. And after lots of research on the cat family and tedious analysis of the results, they have identified multiple genes that play a role in directing this kind of pattern formation on the tiger's skin.
That's interesting. Tell me more.
So, there are basically two sets of genes that control the process of stripe formation in the tiger's skin.
Oh, you mean genes also work in teams?
Yes, the first set controls the planning for the making of the stripes, and the second set controls the execution of the plan. So, in a way, we can compare them like the making of a building. The architect gives the plan for the building, and the masons execute the plan.
Okay, can I guess what their functions might be? So, planner genes do the job of laying the foundation of the pattern. The executor gene works to make sure that the melanocytes produce the right kind of pigment according to the pattern. They are like the overseers of melanocyte production. But Jigesa, when does all of this happen? Like at what stage of tiger development?
So the planning of the stripes happens before birth, Utsuka. The planner genes decide where the pheomelanin producing cells will sit and where the eumelanin cells will sit. Once this is done, the executor genes indicate melanocytes to start producing the pigments assigned.
Ooh, that's interesting. So, is it possible that the stripe pattern starts to appear on tiger's skin even before birth?
Yes, Utsuka. And that's why tigers are born with the stripes on their body.
Again, this is super interesting. But I wonder what good these stripes do for the tigers. Like, what is the purpose of having these stripes on their body?
Let's ask Mihir.
And now it's time to ask a scientist.
Okay, so continuing our discussion from the previous segment, we now have Mihir Trivedi, who is a researcher at CCMB, and he studies animals both in the wild and in the lab. Jigyasa, why don't you go ahead and ask your question about tigers?
Why do you think tigers have stripes? Or what is the role that stripes play on a tiger's body?
Tiger are like mainly they are the apex predators. So of course they don't have to fear something. So they don't have stripes to hide from other predators, but they have stripes to hide from their prey so that they can hunt. They can go insidiously and then can pounce upon their prey without being seen. And plus additionally, most prey of tigers like ungulates, like deers and buffaloes, these are colorblind. So that also helps. Those stripes also helps to confuse them that where the tiger is and where the bush is.
So, what do you mean when you say colorblind?
So human eyes are like RGB, red, green, and blue. Can see in these, but most ungulates can see only in two colors, maybe like green and blue, like that. So they won't be able to associate orange color that we associate with the tiger.
Oh, so then our question is like, or how do you study these wild animals? Like, because we can captivate them in the zoo, but then they are wild, so you cannot study the wild properties of the animal in a zoo.
Okay, yeah. So even if you see wildlife biology, it can have various aspects to it. Some are basically observational aspects, some are experimental aspects. So observational aspects would be like behavioral studies where you go there and you may have like camera trap. You will have camera traps. You will see that how tigers behave and record that. Or maybe you will just observe. You will sit around in forest and you will observe various animals, that how this is happening, how that is happening, and then you come to conclusion. Other and experimental aspects would be to, as I was talking about DNA, to extract something like DNA via their blood samples, or what I use, we call it as non-invasive sampling. Like we use fecal samples or urine samples or hair samples, something like that. So of course, blood samples and tissue samples are difficult to get from wild animals.
Okay, so you mentioned you collect these, samples of fecal matter, urine, and all of that. So I'm curious about how a day in your life in the field looks like. Like, what do you do? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So for some amount of time you have to live in the forest. So like forest, so these forest guards are there and they have their huts or small rooms. So you go and live there.
Wow, like who knew? Like scientists
Yeah.
stay in forests as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
Mehir.
perk of being a wildlife scientist.
Yeah. So, Mehir, did you always envision yourself becoming a wildlife biologist? Like, did you as a child think that one day you would be in the
Uh,
forest? You
yeah,
know.
my my answer would that like be a slightly unconventional answer that I never dreamt that I will be a wildlife biologist or something. So my basic interest was in genetics. First studied genetics in my 11th class. So 11th class I was CBSE course, so NCRT book. So NCRT book at that time, first sentence of genetics chapter was, have you ever wondered that elephants only give birth to elephants? Why they don't give birth to dogs? That actually struck me. Like it has struck me since then. Like how, why do you find it so obvious that humans are giving birth to humans only and dogs are giving birth to dogs only? Like what actually makes it like that? So from there, like it, of course, there are then genes, then there is development process, and then how development process actually developed, that came from evolution. That from molecular biology and everything we can understand that how things work, but the why of everything is evolution, that why something is like that. And I found that why is much more difficult to answer than how. That, and I am kind of that history buff also, so this also took me, so biology has this unique thing that biology has a history also.
Mhm.
So that, so that it is like a marriage of both the things which I like. I like history, so evolution is that. I like biology, evolution is also that. So yeah.
So, what would you like to say to such young listeners who might be maybe interested in that first paragraph, may have that
Mhm.
curiosity?
Mm-hmm. I think like I will like one obvious advice would be read as much as you can and read eclectic studies. So have a varied bunch of reading, different things. Reading takes effort, so it gives you time so that you can develop your own thinking. And another thing which I would emphasize, it is slightly unconventional, that embrace the confusion in your life. Like if you are confused that where you have to choose physics or whether you have to choose biology, like okay, accept it. Having confusion is a nice thing to have.
So, do you now understand why tigers have stripes?
Yes. So the stripes help tigers to blend into the grasses to hide from the prey. The black stripes are because of eumelanin, and the orange skin is because of pheomelanin. Melanocytes are the type of skin cells that produce these pigments. And to control this pigment production, there are two sets of genes in the tiger cells. One set lays the foundation and decides which melanocyte produces what kind of pigment, and the other set executes the pigment production.
And we also got to know that a sentence in the science textbook eventually inspired Mihir to become a wildlife biologist. And how cool is it that he gets to live in the forest, studying animals in the wild?
As we always say, we are still learning a lot about tiger stripes and patterns on animal skins in general.
But we are sure that our conversation must have sparked an interest for you to become the next tiger researcher, right, Utsuka?
Absolutely, Jigyasa.
Follow us on our social media and let us know if you're interested to know more about the tigers or different colors.
So, that's it for today.
We'd like to thank Mihir Trivedi for being a part of this episode.
If you want to know more about today's scientist, check out their profile. The link is in the show notes.
If you have any questions that you want us to explore, shoot them away to indiaaskswhy@gmail.com.
Or if you would like to directly talk to us, join the fun on our Telegram group. Again, the link for it is in the show notes.
And for more updates on the podcast, follow at India Asks Why and at India Bioscience on Instagram and Twitter.
Shweta N. Hegde and Ruchi Manglonia are the hosts for the podcast.
Ira Zibu edited this episode of the podcast and transcribed the interview segment. India Asks Why is supported by India Bioscience's second outreach grant and is hosted on India Biospeaks.
So stay tuned and stay curious.